Alright, okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to the new week. So we'll get started for today's session over here. Quick disclaimer, of course, everything that we're covering in today's session solely based on my personal point of view. And of course, any ideas presented do not directly translate to any form of trade signals or investment advice. Okay. So let's get started by looking at the overall perspective of the week, right? What are some events to take note of? Okay. Now, last week itself, if you're keeping track of things, we have very interesting CPI data coming from the US, right? So the expected was 3.4. The actual came in way better than that. Okay, so that sent the dollar strengthening, and of course, with higher CPI data and the previous month, we have very strong labor market data from NFP as well. There's a very good possibility the Fed will actually postpone their rate cut, right? So that also sent the dollar stronger. And over the weekend, we did see some, breaking news, you could call it, from Iran and Israel, right? So cover a little bit of the tension build up. So that sent the markets into a little bit of a risk off, and therefore the dollar continued to strengthen as well. So overall, we did see that development I would say from midweek last week all the way until last week, and of course going into this week here, right? So you definitely need to keep track of all this, right? As you're looking at the markets, because some of this news here can actually shift the market sentiment. Okay. This week in terms of events calendar, what we have is the Canadian CPI coming in tomorrow on Tuesday. Okay, so definitely CPI data everyone keep track of. On Wednesday we have the pound CPI again. CPI data definitely want to look up for it. And on Thursday we have the labor market from Australia. Okay. So this week we don't really have the US data, okay, and likely what I'm expecting here is very much going to be, if there's not much kind of economic data, then the US dollar will be very much driven from the sentiment perspective, and if there isn't much, then my perspective here is likely we're going to see some consolidation, and maybe moving forward, the dollar may continue to strengthen from there, right? Because looking at things here, I think the rate cut would likely be postponed or even reduced, right? Initial expectation was 3 times, and maybe right now it may be 1 time in the year itself, okay? So, yep, do keep an eye on all these developments. And of course, we also have the Bitcoin halving coming in. Okay, we're already into mid-April. I don't know the exact date, right? But likely it's gonna happen soon. Okay, we did see some volatility in Bitcoin over the weekend as well. Some tweets came in, saw on social media, how people have bust their account and things like that. Again, in trading, always manage your risk, right? That's the number one thing you need to always be aware of. Okay, so couple of different assets. There are definitely interesting opportunities, and interesting development going on. Okay, and I always highlight this, right? Week to week, I think opportunities in the market is always there. Okay, you don't need to FOMO, you don't need to rush things through, because the market will always be there. Okay, the thing is you need to protect your capital, more than ever. Okay, so that's on the updates in terms of the news. Let's jump into the charts over here to kind of highlight a couple of things. Okay, we'll start off with some of the major pairs over here with dollar index. So we did see the dollar actually push off strongly, right? From last week and then going into now. So as I mentioned, we're going to be bullish on the dollar overall if we can get a decent corrective pullback. Okay, I mean the fit right now is a little bit too early because we're still basically near the top of it. But essentially, if we can get a corrective pullback here, I do expect one more push for the dollar, right? So short term, we're looking at bullish bias on the dollar itself. Okay. Then in euro, it's slightly different because euro here from a technical perspective, we have came towards the 100% extension. Okay, for this three wave move here. So I'm actually a bit more of a neutral instead of like looking to sell the euro dollar, because I want to see how the market's going to react first, right? Every time it completes a three-wave structure with FIPS, that's where it's at the crossroad, right? So there are a couple of ways in which the market can actually develop into right now. We may see a V-shaped bounce. because of this completion. If that's going to be the case, maybe short term we're going to look for upside. We may see a crawl here. Okay, if that's going to be a crawl, then obviously we'll be looking for upside as well. And alternative is that this can still develop into a corrective structure. Okay, if that's going to be a corrective structure, it may take more time or even longer for me to decide as to how we're going to navigate this. Okay, so not the clearest for now, so I'm just going to be neutral on euro dollar. We just want to give it time, see how the market is going to develop around that zone. Okay, pound dollar is where I would be looking for potential sell opportunity. Okay, now the structure may look similar where we have a three-wave push, but in terms of Fed expectation, the pound dollar has yet to complete the 100% expectation, but the euro dollar has. Okay, so over here, that's where pound dollar, I'm looking at more of a downside continuation. If you can get a corrective structure here, I'll be looking for one more push down. Okay, so pound dollar I'm bearish, which can align quite nicely with some of the news that we have, right? We have the pound CPI coming in. If the sentiment of the dollar continue to remain strong, and then CPI coming in from the UK is not as positive, maybe a surprise to the downside, then this would potentially build into a very nice little trade to the downside, right? A potential sell. Okay. Then we have the Aussie. Aussie is very much similar to the euro. Okay, it has completed a three-wave with Fed expectation done, so kind of at the crossroad again, as I mentioned. So I'm neutral. Just give it sufficient time to develop into something clearer for me to kind of come back in. All right. Dollar Canadian here, also a little bit on a neutral perspective because we have the market hitting that Fib. Okay, if I zoom out a little bit, this is the view on Dollar Canadian. Of course, it's not the simplest structure of all. It's a little bit complex. But I put in a view here where it's a WXY. Okay, there's a little bit of upside here potentially. So I want to see how the market's going to develop because we have two areas of projection, right? One is taking from this 1, 2, 3, right? The internal structure has hit the 100% fit. The other 100% fit that you see at the top is essentially from this W, X, and Y. Okay, so understand that we still have a little bit upside, but I want to just see how the market is going to develop from here on. Okay, so kind of zoom in a little bit. Okay, if we get a corrective pullback, we may see a little bit of short-term upside, but again, the market can just instantly reverse from here and give us a V shape. Okay, so give it a bit of time, see how it's going to develop first. Okay, dollar yen managed to break higher, right? This is a very, very interesting pair because while the dollar is strengthening, right, and the yen seems to be weakening, I would personally not want to touch the dollar yen in particular to the upside. Okay, the reason is we are again going into the territory where would the Bank of Japan intervene. Okay, it's no surprise that the Bank of Japan has intervened before and is likely going to be intervening again in the future, simply because they do not want the yen to be too weak, right, in relation to the dollar itself. So for that particular reason itself, I'm not in favor of buying the dollar yen, right? In other words, I'm not in favor of selling the yen against the dollar. Okay, so for dollar yen specifically in the context of where we are right now, I'm not going to touch the upside. Now, if we see an opportunity to get a counter trend reversal sell, then I'll be interested. But if the market just going to give me patterns to suggest more upside, I'll just avoid it. Okay, again, coming back to that perspective where I don't need to trade dollar yen specifically to actually make profits off the market, right? I can trade other asset classes that I'm more comfortable with. Okay, so this is a very, very unique case for the dollar yen, right? So that's where I'm coming from. And where I'm coming from also, I think you guys are aware, I don't trade one currency in particular, right? I'm basically not forced to trade one currency. I'm not forced to trade a particular currency as well. I'm basically just sourcing where are the easiest, most convicted, most confident trades, and I'm focusing on those, right? So for me, dollar yen is something that I'll just put them aside until I can get a nice sell opportunity. Then I'll come back, right? But for now, I'm just gonna leave it aside. Okay, gold here is something that may have something for the week itself, depending on how the market's gonna develop. We did see a little rejection of last week. So this week here, if you can see a little bit of a corrective pullback, then I may consider a sell trade. Short-term pullback. Again, why the market seems to be overly extended. A decent pullback is healthy. Okay, so that's what I'm expecting. So give it maybe another 1 or 2 days. By Wednesday or Thursday, if you can get that clear pattern structure, then we have a setup to sell gold. Okay, so this is definitely in my watch list, but we'll see. Okay, right now I don't have any orders set in yet, but basically just in my watch list to keep an eye on. Okay, crude oil. I think right now crude oil, this isn't the clearest structure of all. It's definitely a correction here. If you are looking in isolation, this looks impulse correction. You look for upside, but I'm a bit cautious to the upside right now because the market seems to be extended again without much of a significant pullback. So I'm cautious on that. Okay, so that's where the context comes in, right? So understanding a little bit of context is definitely very, very important. Okay, so crude oil, neutral for me as well. S&P. Last Friday, I had a very nice little trade on this. The market seems to be bouncing off a little bit. Okay, but we'll see. Okay, I don't have anything right now on the S&P. Last Friday, had a very nice little sell trade for about 2.1 risk to reward ratio. Fairly easy trade as well, right? Kind of got in, and then without much of a drawdown, the market just moved in full targets. So S&P over here, I think right now, we didn't really tag the 100%, but obviously it came close. Okay, so the thing here is, can this tree wave be completed? Can this just structure be just there? Likely, right? So I'm definitely not too eager to be trading to the downside anymore, right? So we'll see. Okay, I want to see how the market's gonna develop here. Of course, if this is just gonna be like that correctively, then there might be still one more push. Okay, but for now, there isn't much that I would really highlight. Okay, I have this on my watch list right now, but nothing really concrete at the moment. Okay, some of the yen pairs here, nothing much. You can see the yen is basically just reversing back. So I'm just neutral on them, right? So pound yen is a V shape, nothing much there. Aussie yen is a V shape, nothing much there. Okay. Pound Australia is something I am interested in, but of course with the recent development, we'll probably need to update a little bit of things here. Okay, yeah, so just see how the market turns out. Anyway, Monday markets, I've kind of highlighted this a couple of times as well. Monday market, sometimes the move can be fake. Okay, what I mean by that is, today you see the market move up, but it's Monday, right? So oftentimes it can easily come back down tomorrow. Okay, so likelihood of this development, if this just continue to go higher and then if it comes back down tomorrow, then this can be an expanding structure. Okay, but in any case, I'll be more interested in upside, right? If this is going to be a corrective pattern itself, because we did have this as an impulsive move, a little bit of a double bottom structure. Okay, very clear channel structure here. Trading for bottom. So if this is going to be corrective, then obviously we are looking at upside. Okay, so pound odd is one of the pairs I'm keeping a close eye on. In fact, last week we are starting to look at it, but we haven't really got a setup to get involved yet. Or I'll say we have a setup, but the market didn't really tag us in. So this week I'm just going to monitor this, and likely we may get something if the market pulls back, and then we may get something to the upside. Okay, so that's why it's also a highlighted pair here. Okay, EuroCAD, nothing much for me. V shape, so I'm just gonna leave it aside. Bitcoin, very interesting, right? We get a drop. Hopefully none of you actually got trapped, or got caught in that sell-off, right? I recall, right, week to week I've been highlighting that don't buy it yet. Even though we have a halving, but the price doesn't kind of support that, right? The pattern structure doesn't support the buy trade. Okay, so you want to always combine, right? Understanding from a macro fundamental perspective with Bitcoin halving. So macro perspective, fundamental perspective, statistically, prices will go higher. But that's the directional bias, right? You need to have the time element. So the time element is basically your setup. If you don't have a setup, don't jump in a trade, right? So Bitcoin over here, we don't have a buy setup. Even until now, we don't have a buy setup. Okay, the entire pattern structure here seems to suggest if we get a corrective pullback, we may even get one more drop. Okay, you never know. Maybe the knee-jerk reaction for halving, okay, can be an initial drop first, and then after that, a massive rally. Okay, so don't get too fixated with the idea that, oh, Bitcoin halving equals buy, right? You also want to have different perspective of the market, especially coming from technical as well, to give you a clue as to when to get involved. Should you get involved, should you be patient, and things like that. So for me, Bitcoin price chart seems to suggest a little bit more downside. Okay, so there's no need to rush things through. Looking at the projection right now, it may even come back down towards around 60,000. Right, it doesn't mean that I'm just gonna buy off the 60,000, but that's definitely a key area that I'll pay closer attention. Okay, so I'm not rushing into it. Again, the media, maybe your friends around you might overhype a little bit in terms of halving. But I just want to give you another perspective, right? Again, we are not Bitcoin trader. Okay, I don't call myself a Bitcoin trader. Just like the same perspective, I'm not a dollar yen trader, right? I don't need to trade the dollar yen. I don't need to trade Bitcoin to make money off the markets. I can always trade other things, right? So my role is basically just looking out for solid opportunities that I'm comfortable in, I'm confident in, and I'll take it. Okay, so again, frame yourself in that perspective, right? You don't need to always catch what is the most popular thing in the market, right? Because right now, definitely Bitcoin is very, very popular because it's halving, right? Everyone will be talking about it. Okay, so have that perspective in mind, yeah. So right now, as of today, what I have is likely this couple that I've tagged in, right? The gold side, S&P, not that much, but just keeping a watch, and then Pound Australia, right? But of course, the market is going to continue to develop over the weeks, so we'll see. Okay, but as of today, those are the ones that I would pay a little bit more attention. Okay. Let me cover a little bit of like some other different asset classes that some of you may be interested in. Okay, for example, like German DAX over here seems to be bouncing off quite neatly. Okay, coming off that 618 as well, right? So yeah. Okay, so what I would say here is for German DAX, okay, if you're interested in this index, likely we'd see it like this. Okay. Wait for a corrective pullback. If you can get that, then of course you'll be looking for upside. Potential target is back to where the top is, right? Okay, so wait for the corrective pullback. Okay, A50, pretty neat bounce. Not exactly at this fit level, but this is obviously an impulsive move, right? So what I would do is I'll move this and take it as the low, near-term low has been established. Okay, if you can get a corrective pullback, then yeah, that will be upside. Okay. Hong Kong, slightly different. Let me just quickly update this. Yeah, we'll probably shift this here. Okay, we'll probably update the Hong Kong chart a little bit. The projection would probably be like this. Okay. Yeah. So maybe a little bit more downside. Ideally, if this is gonna turn into a crawl pattern, then of course, upside, right? So we're bullish on the Hang Seng as well. Okay. Aussie index. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, this looks pretty corrective, right? I think there's a very obvious pattern development. Looking like a tree wave. So if I were to clean this up a little bit, we can even do the channeling technique. Right, so probably if I extend this a little bit, that's the territory. This may continue to come back up a little bit, right? Then if that's going to be the case, you probably can look for one more drop. Okay, to complete that three-way structure, right? So I think Aussie here, short term, you may want to look out for a little bit of the downside. Okay. Yeah, that's my take. Oh, then you have the UK 100. Okay, FTSE. Okay, so let's update the chart a little bit. Instead of the corrective structure, this seems to be developing as a crawl. Okay, this seems to be developing into a crawl pattern, right? So, suggest to be cautious, to just be patient. Again, crawl fips are a little bit difficult to maneuver, but if I were to just use some simplest way of projection, we'll look out for the 127 extension. Okay, again, it may or may not reach that area, but just a simple projection, something like that. Okay, so FTSE may be short-term upside, but again, this may not be the best buy opportunity in terms of like index. I think if you want to look for bullish opportunity, we can't cover, right? German DAX, Shanghai, right? The A50, that's definitely the ones. This one probably, if I'm gonna rank it, is not at the top tier, right? Okay, so that's on the FTSE side. Okay. Yeah, so those are some of the index. I think over here, Sunadro asked about the franc yen and cat yen. I think yen pairs probably a lot of V shapes, right? Okay, franc yen is a little bit different. I think franc yen, the structure here seems to be corrective overall. Okay, we may have seen this as a completion. Let's just do a quick measurement. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay, a little bit more. So chef yen, potentially something like that. Okay. So the idea is, of course, if this is gonna be crawling up, that will be ideal for a sell. Okay. And if you get a strong projection up, don't sell immediately. Maybe you will wait for a V shape, then that's your sell. Okay, so that's on franc yen. I think cat yen probably not. Okay, cat yen is just range, V shape. Okay, so nothing there, right? So chef yen is unique because the chef and the yen kind of like both are correlated. It's just like Aussie and New Zealand, right? So this one is slightly different in terms of pattern development. But I think in all other yen pairs, you probably just avoid it because they are more like a V-shaped formation at the moment. Cool. Okay, so yeah, generally that's what I have on the table for today. Okay. Good. Any questions that you guys would like to understand a little bit more, or would like to clarify? uh NASDAQ here, this is the view that I would have. But obviously it's not the best. It's not the best right now, right? Because quite a bit of like V shapes internally. But for me, I think NASDAQ may have a little bit more downside first. Okay, not the best trading opportunity because of the V shapes internally, but the higher probability I will lean against is to the downside. Okay, so that's on NASDAQ. Dow Jones seems bearish. Okay, yeah, Dow Jones, I would take it as a bearish bias, right? This looks pretty impulsive. We kind of managed to break off this area here as well as a potential crawlish environment. So Dow Jones, I'm gonna be bearish. Okay, this is the take, but of course this may pull back, then only look for a sell. Okay, but the overall structure seems to be bearish, and projection here is likely gonna come back here, right? Okay, so yeah, that's on Dow Jones. Slightly different. Okay, Swiss. Okay, okay, so we did tag the 100%. Didn't really get the reaction that we want. But I wouldn't be selling this, right? I mean, overall structure, this looks crawlish as of now. So I think the overall structure is still, can we look out for opportunities? Can we get a breakout impulsive? Wait for a corrective pullback outside, right? So I think the structure still remains valid. Okay. we'll want to obviously wait for more confirmation for the buy. Okay, but the direction I'm gonna be looking out for is more of an upside. Just wait for the setup to come and then we can look for buy, right? If you're trading the Switzerland index. Okay. What are some of the setups? Mainly, I think right now, if you came in late, mainly it's just this. Okay. But we'll want to wait for a three wave, right? The market's just pushing up right now. Mainly is the pound odd and potentially gold. Okay. Those are the two that I really have in my watch list. Australia cat. Okay. Seems to be coming down quite strong, right? Again, this is the risk off sentiment. So if we take a look at this here, yeah, we're kind of coming down towards the 618. My take is you don't want to be taking any trades as of now, right? I think this seems to be impulsive. Okay, if this pulls back correctively, then you can take it one more time to expect this pattern structure. Okay, yeah, we'll see. Okay, I think odd cat again, not something you want to jump in immediately. I think bigger picture perspective is that you can also see it from an angle where this is a correction. Okay, so if that's gonna be the perspective, then this might be the top. But again, you don't want to sell it now either, right? You always wait for the correction, then you sell it, right? Either way, you can see that we are looking at a sell eventually if we can get this. Okay. What book would you suggest for technical? Again, it really depends on the methodology of technical analysis because it's so wide, right? The range of technical analysis can be Elliott wave, can be harmonic patterns, can be Fibonacci, can be price patterns, can be chart patterns, can be indicator based. Then you have like supply, demand, order flow, volume profile. It's really wide, okay? So you need to. The journey of a trader is basically you need to go and explore, right? You're going to try out different things, go and experience it, and then see which one fits your style, and then you dive in, right? So the thing is, you need to go and have a little bit, pick up a little bit of each, so that you can try it out to see if you like it. If you like it, then you go in depth, right? So I would say in general, there isn't like a single book to read off for technicals because you need to pick which one you want first. Yeah. Australia New Zealand pair. Okay, this one here, I'm definitely more interested in the downside. Okay, at least for one more move, right? Because we have this as a crawl. We have our initial push. This is corrective in nature, so definitely one more drop. Okay, so my take of this is the minimum expected target is here. Okay, if you put in a fit, probably around there as well, right? Yeah, the 100% is there. Okay. So this one here, obviously price needs to remain below 1.0950 for this entire analysis to remain intact. And of course, this is the projection. Okay. This if you're trading this pair, you need to be very patient. Okay, because it's a pair that it's correlated to one another, so the movement of it is not going to be very volatile, right? The strength and the pros of it is, of course, it's less volatile. It's easier for traders to manage it if they want to. The not so positive side is that it's just going to be slow, okay, and you just need to be patient with it. Okay, so Aussie New Zealand, that's the take. Okay, yeah. Cat Frank. Let's see. Okay. Whenever you see something like that, this is always not the easiest and it's a little bit tricky, right? Because the fib here, we are projecting a little bit lower. Okay. But at the same time, the market actually took off that low, right? The market broke off that low. So from an Elliott wave perspective, we can say that the tree wave is completed. Okay. But if you're very, very strict and you say, okay, I want to look at the fib, right? Technically, it will be here, right? But it doesn't need to, okay? So when you face with such situation, I always like to just stay a little bit out of the market, because definitely that's not the best opportunity already. Because one or two things can happen. If this is going to be a three wave completed, then there's a good chance this will go up, right? Because then that will be a corrective structure itself. However, this can also come back down to complete this as a 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the thing is, when the pattern itself give you the ambiguity, right? Like this can also happen, that can also happen. It's not really that clear. My suggestion is always just stay out of it. Okay. So Cat Frank is kind of giving that perspective right now, right? If this continue to come back down, then obviously, again, you don't have a setup now either, right? So the direction is not the best, it's not the clearest of all, the pattern structure is not the clearest of all. Yeah, I wouldn't spend too much time on Cat Frank if were to look at it. This wouldn't be top priority for me. Okay, good, huh? Cool. So I hope today's session give you quite a bit of different perspective of the market, right? To kind of summarize a little bit, right? What I'm looking for myself here is basically the pound odd as the focus. Gold here is the secondary one. We'll probably take away the S&P, right? But basically, we're just focusing on the pound odd and gold. Okay, I think this two right now is a bit clearer. But as I always say, the market will develop continuously, right? So we never know what's going to be happening tomorrow and the day after. We may get more opportunities, right, after midweek. And of course, for those of you into news trade, we have a couple of CPIs coming in on CAD as well as the pound. Those are definitely opportunities you can look to trade the news. Okay, so that's all for me. All the best for the new week itself, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Yeah. Okay, see you guys. Bye bye.